Early rulers always kept the Jaffa Gate locked from sunset to dawn. Those needing to enter the city before the gate was opened could often be seen lowering themselves over the wall with ropes. On Fridays, the iron gates were locked at noontime to ensure no infidel would take over the city while the Muslims were at prayer. Jewish visitors who saw Jerusalem for the first time through the Jaffa Gate were required to tear their clothes as a sign of mourning for their loss of the city of David. A rabbi was stationed at the gate to supervise this task. The Jaffa Gate, along with the Damascus Gate, are the two main entrances into the Old City. The gate is one of the most important openings through the walls because it is the main link between Old Jerusalem and the New City to the west. Each day, masses of people intent on commerce or spiritual fulfillment march through this gate. Facing west, the Jaffa Gate traditionally marked the start of the old road to Jaffa, which is a Mediterranean port city about 40 miles away. The traffic through the gate began growing in the middle part of the 19th century, when a second city began developing outside the walls. Traditionally, residents were leery of leaving the protection of their walls. Only a few, if any, settlements could ever be found outside Old Jerusalem. But as the old city began to decline from within, a few brave souls began looking to the open areas outside the Jaffa Gate. The father of the new city that emerged was an Englishman of Jewish descent, Sir Moses Montefiore. The son of a wealthy merchant, Montefiore became a generous philanthropist, with a yen to make dramatic changes in the lives of Jerusalem. Montefiore came to the old city as a tourist in the mid-19th century. He was appalled by the dirty and diseased conditions inside the city walls. He took as a personal cause an effort to improve the quality of life of the residents by moving them into new settlements outside the city. In 1854, he began building a neighborhood across the valley from the Jaffa Gate, known as the Mishkanot Shah Ananim. To supply cheap flour for future tenants, Montefiore imported a huge windmill from England, which was brought to Jerusalem piece by piece on the backs of camels. Strange that a European windmill should come to symbolize the suburbanization of Jerusalem. At first, no one came to Montefiore's neighborhoods. They dared not live like this, exposed to harm and persecution, in the wilderness outside the city walls. The workers at Montefiore's cotton factory and windmill proved to be a bickering, lazy, and divided lot. It has been said that some rival Jewish workers at another mill hired a Kabbalist priest to cast the evil eye on Montefiore's efforts. The windmill broke down, replacement parts never arrived, and it never ran again. It appeared that Montefiore's projects were destined to fail. However, a few years after his pioneering effort languished, a plague struck inside the gates, and residents were forced to look at resettling outside the old city. However, shortly after Montefiore's projects began in 1854, a Jewish culture that was exclusive, unbending, and resistant to change established the Orthodox community of Mea Sha'arim. Mea Sha'arim means 100 gates, and it is said that when the area was built in 1875, it was fortified with walls and 100 gates to keep the world and its temptations at bay. Today's gates warn tourists and other worldly influences not to enter. The row houses of Mea Sha'arim form a fortress-like setting. Enter these gates and one is inside an ultra-Orthodox Eastern European ghetto of the 18th century. The predominant language is Yiddish, not Hebrew. The nation of Israel, for the most part, is not recognized by the inhabitants of Mea Sha'arim because the Jewish Messiah has not yet come. They call themselves Haradim, which means God-fearing. The dress code for men and women is identical to that of their ancestors of the Polish ghetto in 1870. Their simple attire includes fur hats, black coats, beards, and long locks of hair for men. Women sport shaved heads, wigs, and scarves, with conservative long dresses and high knee socks. Established in 1870 by Rabbi Vilna Gaon of Lithuania, the community is funded and assisted by like-minded ultra-Orthodox communities from all over the world. Their schools, called yeshivas, still actively debate the Torah. Their synagogues are often festive places and are the center of religious life. Special rabbis perform traditional circumcisions. Young schoolboys kiss the Torah for the first time and are rewarded. Prayer scrolls known as tefillim or phylacteries are bound to the arms and foreheads. From sundown Friday until sundown Saturday, Shabbat is strictly observed. Police barriers prohibit vehicle traffic into Mea Sha'arim. Stores are closed. Writing, handling of money, and the operation of any kind of machinery is strictly forbidden. Today, automobiles traveling from the new city enter Old Jerusalem through an enlarged breach in the wall near the Jaffa Gate. The hole was cut in about 1898 by Turkish rulers. During this period, Jerusalem was still part of Turkey's Ottoman Empire. Events that were later to plunge the world into the First World War were beginning to play themselves out in the Middle East. An uneasy alliance had developed between the Germans and the Turks. German Emperor Kaiser Wilhelm II and his wife were set to meet with their Turkish allies in Jerusalem. However, a strange problem of international etiquette developed. The Kaiser insisted that he should make a grand entrance into the city to impress the Turkish leaders. He planned to enter through the old Jaffa Gate on horseback, accompanied by a large entourage in open carriages. This grand idea presented a problem for the Turkish authorities. Not only did the angled opening of the old gate make a mounted entry difficult, if not impossible, but according to Muslim tradition, only a conqueror could ride his horse through the gates of Jerusalem. A solution was finally found. The Turks ripped a large hole in the wall near the Jaffa Gate and built a road large enough to accommodate the Kaiser riding in his horse-drawn carriage. The Kaiser rode into the city not as a conqueror, but as a visiting dignitary. The hole is still used for automobile traffic. Jerusalem continued to languish under Turkish rule. The city became tired, dirty, and its infrastructure was almost non-existent. Christians and Jews suffered under heavy prejudice. They weren't allowed to do some of the most basic things: ride horses, ring bells, repair their churches or synagogues. Once an intellectual capital, the city's cultural life began to disappear. By 1890, not a single operating printing press could be found in the old city. Ironically, during this time, the ideas that formed the modern nation of Israel were first introduced in Europe by a man who became the father of Zionism. Born in Budapest in 1860, Theodor Herzl was appalled by the anti-Semitism he witnessed as a correspondent covering the Dreyfus Affair in Paris in the late 1890s. He decided that the only solution to the problem would be the creation of a Jewish national state. An audacious bluffer, he went from nation to nation negotiating for a new homeland, but was turned down every time. He wrote and published The Jewish State in 1896, a how-to guide for national independence. Herzl also founded the World Zionist Congress in 1897 and served as its president until his death in 1904 at the age of 44.